So I'm
Well,
just worried about you because usually you would send me a message and I didn't see a message. I was worried. I said, I hope everything's okay. Like
yeah,
that.
that's
Um,
cool. Yeah, so this today's learning should be as chusful alias aliyah of the neshama of Rus Bas Yehuda Leib Shlomo, my mother-in-law.
yeah, that's amazing.
And yeah, let's do
Okay.
some prayer.
Peah, Dalad,
Aleph, Dalet Aleph.
Dalad. Oh,
Yeah, that's the Chazara.
I took out the tissue. That's why. I took it out beforehand. Okay. If pay is given while attached to the soil, in the case of suspended vines and palm trees, the householder takes down and distributes to the poor. Reb Shimon says, so too in the case of smooth nut trees. Even if 99 say to distribute and one says to snatch, this one they heed, for he spoke according to the law. In the case of suspended vines and the palm trees, it is not so. Even if 99 say to snatch and one says to distribute, this one they heed, for he spoke according to the law. If a person took part of the payah and cast it on the rest, he has nothing of it. If he fell upon it or spread his cloak over it, they remove it from him. And the same applies to gleanings and the forgotten sheaf. Okay.
Okay.
Dollar, dollar.
Mr. Daled. Peah ein kotrin osa b'magalus. Okay, so here's another little concession over here to human nature, is that they don't let any sharp implements. Just like you go into the plane and they don't let sharp implements onto the plane.
Right.
They don't let sharp implements into the field when the poor are reaping because
By the way, I could never understand that. If you're online to go on the plane, they take away if you have like plastic knives or forks, they take that away from you. But then when you get past the security and you're online, all the restaurants
not plastic.
they used to take it on the beginning. So they take it away, and then you would go to a restaurant that, I didn't go, but there were restaurants there with plastic utensils. I could never understand what they were. In the
Yeah.
beginning, yeah, in America. You're right.
Yeah. So anyway, for pretty much the same reason, you're in in a setting where people are competing with each other to get food, and having sharp implements on them is just not a good
Not a
idea.
good idea.
Right.
Yeah,
ואין עורפין עושה בקרדומוס, כדי שלא יכו איש ישרדה. And also, I'm using a cardom is an axe, or a hoe. So all these sharp implements, so that people shouldn't come to use them as weapons against each other.
right. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Shalosh av ayos bayom. So an abaya is an interesting term, which Kahati delves a lot into the etymology of it, but why it's called an abaya. But it's a designated time at which at which the poor can come into the field and take stuff. Okay, particularly Peah, Leket, and Shecha. Um, and so there are three times per day when aniyim are allowed to come into the field. B'shachar, b'chatzos, mincha. So once early in the morning, once at midday, and once during the afternoon. Rabban Gamliel omer lo amru ele kedei shelo yivchasu. So he says this is set as a minimum in order to be of benefit to the poor, so that the poor can have as many opportunities as possible to come into the field. Rabbi Akiva omer lo amru ela kadei shelo yosifu. Uh, he said, no, this is the maximum burden that we want to place on the farmer, on the landowner. So you don't want to be matriarch him that he's got to open up his field more than that every day. Okay. And the halacha is actually like both of them, exactly three, no more, no less, because you don't want to give more, make more trouble for the farmer, and you don't want to make more, and you don't want to give less opportunity to the aniyim. Shalbeis name hayu melaktin al hachevel v'nosnim peah mikol omein v'omein. So they state as a praise for the house of Namer. They used to make a rope through their fields and basically divide the field into separate sections so that they could give a payah on each section of the field, and each time they would be fulfilling the mitzvah. I said, okay, that's a good thing to do. Well done. Although that's obviously it's a chumrah. It wasn't a necessary thing to do. They just went above and beyond because the mitzvah was chavev to them. Okay. Um, Nochri shekatzar is sadehu va'achar kach nisgair. So the mitzvah of Peah is only one of the is a mitzvah for Jews. It's not a mitzvah for non-Jews. So if there was a non-Jew who was farming in Eretz Yisrael and he was in the process of converting, and he's already harvested his field, and then they say, okay, time to go to mikveh, let's go. And he comes out and he's Jewish, and now what must he do with the produce that he's just harvested? It's completely pater because it was a goy who harvested it.
Mm.
Pater mina leket mina shicha mina peah, not only from that, but also from leket and shicha. Leket and shicha we're going to learn later, but that's basically the bits that fall off the wagon as you're going, and shicha is the sheaves that were forgotten in the field. You walked past them and didn't pick them up. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda mechayev b'shicha she'en shicha ela b'shas ha'imor. Says no, shicha is a different story because it's been harvested, but it's still lying in clumps on the field. You're still going to be going and reaping it, by tying up the batches and whatever, and therefore this nokri who converted is still going to be chayav in shicha. So that actually sounds like a pretty reasonable statement. So why does the Tanna Kamma hold that he's pater? So the Yerushalmi explains the reason of the Tanna Kamma is that since the Chachamim made the drasha of from the pasuk v'shachachta omer b'sadeh, including the shichas kama and also including the shichacha of standing grain. Um, so the mitzvah of shicha doesn't only include the the sheaves that have been bound together from the cat grain, but even the standing grain can be shicha. So therefore, since he has been pater from shicha of the standing grain, he's also pater from the shicha in the cat grain, and halacha follows the Tanna Kamma.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah, back to Aleph Base.
One should not get payer less than 60, and even though they said payer has no measure, everything depends on the size of the field, the number of the poor, and according to the extent of the crop. One gives payer for the beginning of the field and from its middle. Rabbi Shimon says, provided that he gives it at the end of the measure. Rabbi Yehuda says, if he left one stalk, he joins it to payer, and if not, what he left counts only as ownerless property. They say the general rule regarding payah, whatever is food and is guarded and grows out of the ground and is gathered at the same time and is brought in for storage is liable to payah, and grain and pulse are in this general rule. Okay. And
Dayim.
Ryan. Okay. Dalad Hey. The Aramaic text in Ezra and in Daniel render tummy hands that touch them. Aramaic text that one wrote in Hebrew or Hebrew text that one wrote in Aramaic and Hebraic script do not render tummy hands that touch them. A scroll of scripture never imparts tuma unless one writes in it in Ashuri script on parchment with ink. The Sadducees say we have a complaint against you. Perushim, for you say that holy scrolls render tummy hands and touch them, and her- heretical heretical books do not render tummy hands that touch them. Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai said, "Is this the only thing we have against Perushim? Why? They say that the bones of a donkey are tahor, the bones of a Yochanan the high priest are tameh." They said to him that their tumah is on account of their affection, so that a person should not make the bones of his father and mother into spoons. He said to them, as regards holy scrolls, too, their tumah is on account of their affection. With heretical books, which are not held dear, do not render tummy hands that touch them. The Jews say, we have a complaint against you, Perushim, for you declare as tahor a stream of pouring liquid. Perushim say, we have a complaint against you, Sadducees, for you have a rule tahor, a canal of water that flows from a cemetery. Sadducees say, we have a complaint against you, Perushim, for you say, if my ox or my donkey causes damage, they are liable. But if my slave or manservants cause damage, they are not liable. If I am liable for the damages of my axe and donkey, regarding whom I am not responsible for the mitzvahs, is it not logical that I should be liable for damages of my slave or maidservant, regarding whom I am responsible for the mitzvahs? They said to them, no. You can say regarding my axe and my donkey, which have no understanding, but you can say so. But you can say so regarding my slave and maidservant, we do have understanding. For if I anger them, he will go and set fire to someone's haystack, and I will be liable to pay. Okay.
Okay. Mikvos.
Okay. Base Gimel. These are the cases of doubt pertaining to drawing water that the sages declared tahor. There is a doubt whether it fell into the mikvah or it did not fall, or alternatively, if it did, definitely did fall. There is a doubt whether there was a 40 saw in the mikvah or whether there was a knot. Or alternatively, there were two mikvahs, one containing 40 saw and the other not, and it fell into one of them, but he did not know which one into which one it fell. These doubtful cases are judged tahor because there is something in which to depend. But if they each contained less than 40 saw and fell into one of them, and he does not know which one it fell, into which one it fell, this doubtful case is judged tame because there is nothing to depend on. But Eliezer says one reviews of drawn water to qualify the mikvah at the beginning, but three lugim went on the surface of the water. But three lugim went on the surface of the water. But the Kachavim say both at the beginning and at the end of the amount is three lugim. If a mikveh has three hollows, each containing one log of drawn water, when it is known that 40 saw of valid water had already fallen into the mikveh before they reach the third hollow, it is valid. Otherwise, it is invalid. But Reb Shimon declares it valid because it is like one mikveh next to another.
Okay.
And Kinam, okay, base. How is this? If there were two women, this one having two pairs of obligatory birds, offerings, and this one having two pairs of such offerings, and a bird flew from this one to that one, it renders one bird offering unfit when it leaves, and if it returns to the original group, it invalidates one bird offering when it returns. If it flew again from the first group into the second, and then it returned again from the second group into the first, and then again it flew from the first group into the second, and then it returned again from the second group into the first, nothing more is lost because even if they are even if because even if they are all commingled, no less than two pairs will be offered fit to offer. If this woman has one pair of bird offerings, and this one has two pairs, this one has three pairs, this one has four pairs, and this one has five, this one has six pairs, and this one has seven pairs, and one bird flew from the first group to the second, then flew from the second to the third, then flew from the third to the fourth, then flew from the fourth to the fifth, and then flew from the fifth to the sixth, and then flew from the sixth to the seventh, then one bird returned down the series of groups. It invalidates one bird in the group it flies to, and one in the group it flew to, flew from, as it goes up through the series of groups, and one as it returns back to the beginning of the series. The first and the second groups do not have any valid bird offerings, and the third group has one valid pair of bird offerings. The fourth group has two valid pairs. The fifth group has three valid pairs. The sixth group has four valid pairs. The seventh group has six valid pairs of bird offerings. If one bird again flew in succession from each group into the next, and then one bird again returned in succession from each group into the next, each bird which flies from the groups invalidates one bird in the group it flies to and one in the group it flew from. As it goes up through the series of groups, as it returns back to the beginning of the series, the third and fourth groups do not have any valid bird offerings. The fifth group has one valid pair, the sixth group has two valid pairs, and the seventh group has five valid pairs of bird offerings. If again one bird flew in succession, from each group into the next, and then again from one bird returned in succession from each group into the next. Then each bird that flies between the groups invalidates one bird in the group it flies to, and one in the group it flew from, as it goes up through the series of groups, and one as it returns back to the beginning of the series. The fifth and the sixth groups do not have any valid bird offerings. The seventh group has four valid birds offerings, and there are those who say that the seventh group did not lose anything more than a result of these additional flights back and forth. And if a bird flew from the bird offering, which must be left to die, into any of these groups, then all the groups of bird offerings must be left to die. If there was an undesignated pair of obligatory bird offerings and a designated pair of bird offerings, and a bird flew from the undesignated to the designated, then he shall take a pair made for the second bird of the undesignated pair. If a bird then returned, or if a bird flew initially from the designated pair into the undesignated pair, then they must all be left to die.
Okay.
And we are on Bava Metzia. Okay. If one leases the field from another for a few years, he may not sow it with flax, and he may have no right to the beams of the sycamore. If he leased it from him for 7 years, the first year he may sow it with flax, and he has the right to the beams of the sycamore.
Hold on.
If one,
Sycamore. Hold on. This was which which Mishnah did you just do?
yes,
Tess. Okay, so we were supposed to be starting on Yud. All right.
okay, if one leases the field from another for one cemetery or sevenfold zuz, the Shemitah year is counted. If he leased it from him for 7 years for 400 zuz to 700 zuz, the Shemitah year is not counted. One who hired for the day collects his wages all night. One who is hired for the night collects all day. One who is hired for several hours collects all night or all day. One who is hired for a week, a month, a year, or a cemetery, if he departs by day, he collects all that day. If he departs at night, he collects that night and the following day. Whether it be the hire of a man, the hire of a beast, or the hire of animals, the law on this day you shall give him his wages applies as well as the law. The wage of a hired worker shall not stay over with you until morning. When? When he claimed it. But if he did not claim it, he does not transgress it. If he gave him a draft on a storekeeper or a money changer, he does not transgress it. If a hired worker claims his wage when it is due, he may swear and take it if his time has passed. He may not swear and take it. If there are witnesses that he demanded of him, he may swear and take it. As for a resident alien, the law on this day you shall give his wages applies to him, but the law, the wage of a hired worker, shall not stay over with you until morning and does not apply to him.
Okay.
Okay.
Shkalim.
Okay. Dolly. Says Reb Shimon, what is the difference between half shekels and a sin offering? Half shekels have a set limit, whereas a sin offering does not have a set limit. But Yehuda says even the half shekels have no set limit, for when Israel returned from the Babylonian exile, darkened were the shekels, later Salem were their shekels. Still later in Teva, still later, Tevayin were their shekels, and they wished to convert dinners on the half shekels. Said Reb Shimon to Reb Yehuda, nevertheless, they all gave a like amount. Whereas in the case of a sin offering, this person brings one worth of a seller, and another brings one worth of two seller, and another brings three seller. The remainder of funds set aside for half the shekels is unconsecrated. The remainder of funds set aside for the purchase of a tenth of an ephah meal offering. The remainder of funds set aside for the purchase of bird offerings of Zavam, Davos, and women after childbirth. The remainder of funds set aside for the purchase of sin offerings and guilt offerings. These reminded are to be placed in the collection chest marked the native offering. This is the general rule. Whatever money has been set aside for the purchase of sacrifices to atone for a sin or a guilt, its remainder is to be placed in the collection box marked the native donative offering. The remainder of funds set aside for a burnt offering is used to be for the purchase of a burnt offering. The remainder of funds set aside for a meal offering is to be used for the purchase of a meal offering. And the remainder of funds set aside for a peace offering is to be used for the purchase of a peace offering. The remainder of funds set aside for a Pesach offering is to be used for the purchase of a peace offering. The remainder of funds contributed for the offerings of Nazarites is to be used for Nazarites, but the remainder of funds contributed for the offerings of a specific Nazarite is to be placed in the collection box marked the native offering. The remainder of funds contributed for the distribution to poor people is to be used for poor people, but the remainder of funds contributed for the sake of a specific poor man is to be given to that poor man. The remainder of funds contributed for a ransom of captives is to be used for the ransom of captives, but the remainder of funds contributed for the ransom of a specific captive is to be given to that captive. The remainder of funds contributed for the burial of the dead is to be used for the burial of the dead, and the remainder of the funds contributed for the burial of a specific dead person is to be given to his heirs. When Meah says the remainder of funds contributed for the burial of a specific dead person is to be held in escrow until Eliyahu comes. Reb Nosson says, but the remainder of funds contributed for the burial of a specific dead person, they give a monument for him on his grave. There we go. 3 periods of the year they withdraw funds from the treasury chamber. 15 days before Pesach, 15 days before Shavuos, and 15 days before Sukkot. These are also the designated dates for the animal tithe. These are the words of Rabbi Akiva. The Azai says the three periods are on the 29th of Adar, the 1st of Shivan, and the 29th of Av. Elazar Ben Shimon said the three periods are on the 1st of Nisan, the 1st of Sivan, and the 29th of Elul. Why did they say on the 29th of Elul instead of saying on the 1st of Tishrei? Because the day is a festival, and one may not tithe on a festival, therefore they advance it to the 29th of Elul. Yeah,
Okay,
good.
that's it.
Okay, great. Have a terrific day.
You too.
Enjoy.
Good day.
See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.